Hi friends, this is Maria Orapallo. I'm a candidate for mayor for the city of Columbia, and I'm coming to you today from the back of my car. I'm waiting for a family member to finish their appointment. I wanted to talk to you about two things today. They both are related to a news item that another candidate for mayor has brought up in our public sphere to talk about and to consider. The city council is making a decision to appoint a new city manager. Two things keep coming up. One, the process was done in private. The reviews, the interviews, the evaluations were done in private. And number two, my opponent is calling for the city council to delay appointing a new city manager until April. Let me take that second point first. I disagree, and here's why. Between January and April of every year, the city manager is making crucial decisions for the current year and for the following year. Those decisions take place January, February, March, and in April. First of all, the most important is the city will find out what their tax revenue was for the previous year. This is important because it helps lay the groundwork for what revenue we can expect for the following year, number one. And number two, it tells us if we have to adjust our current year's budget. Another thing that takes place in this 4-month time period is the city manager sets priorities for all of the departments so that the departments can make their decisions about staffing, about projects, about management, about maintenance, and they'll know what their expected revenue will be and what their expected expenses will be. This is important. This has to take place from the city manager's office. Another thing that takes place between February and March is what we here call CIP, or capital improvement projects. Streets, sidewalks, sewers, water, electric, stormwater. All of these issues that we have waited for every year to start, the organization and the planning for that is in February and March. Do we have the staff? Do we have the supplies? Do we have the access that we need to make these plans go through? And three more things that are small but important. We are currently looking at RFPs, requests for proposals, for broadband access. We are trying to decide as a city whether we can provide broadband access for everyone in the city. And number two, 3 critical areas have been identified, and we've asked for requests, we've requested proposals from businesses to help provide broadband to those critical areas. That's all taking place right now in the city manager's office. That has to happen. We can't wait for that. Another issue that's come up is the ARPA funds, which are the American Rescue Act funds from the federal government. We have already received $12.5 million. We are waiting for another $12.5 million in May. City Council makes the decision on how that money will be spent. But they only do that with input about how, when, what's possible, and what's a pipe dream. That information comes from the city manager. And finally, development proposals are awaiting approval. The city manager's role in that process is more than just putting an item on the agenda. It's about making sure all the requirements for these new developments are taking place in the open and with the proper information to be delivered to the public and to city council. We cannot put those things aside for 4 months waiting for a new city manager to come in. And we certainly can't wait for a new city manager to come in without having the opportunity to have made those decisions so that in April we hit the ground running. The second issue that this brings forward is transparency. What is the definition of transparency? In government, it takes three forms. Excuse me while I refresh my notes. The first is accessibility. Governments need to be able to disclose information as quickly and as thoroughly and as accessibly as possible. The public needs to know where they can find the information and how to use that information. Number two, we must be participatory. Knowledge exists widely in our society. Public officials benefit from talking to the professionals, finding out what the knowledge in the community is, and using that to make better decisions for governance. And finally, government must be collaborative. City leaders, city council, city departments, agencies, social service agencies, citizen groups, all enhance each other's work. Business has a voice in this as well. We need to hear from everybody before decisions get made. A quote that I love about transparency is, "The anatomy of a decision is better understood when all the factors that go into the creation of that decision are examined openly and clearly." That didn't happen in this case. 3 years ago, when we did our first search for a new city manager, we asked stakeholders, boards and commissions, community members, and community agencies to meet and to talk about what we thought we needed in a city manager. 3 years ago, Columbia was a different time than it is today. We've weathered 2 years of disruption in governance, in school, in work, in businesses, and in our own lives. We are a different Columbia than we were 3 years ago. The fault lines have been exposed. We need to be making these decisions transparently, and we're not. Thank you.